No one at Westfield University ever figured out how Emily Harper changed that night. They only remembered the screams, hundreds of terrified students running across the campus courtyard as Emily stood in the middle of them, not moving, not blinking, her eyes glowing a soft, unnatural white. Her long hair floated like there was wind around her, even though the air was perfectly still. Someone shouted, "Run. Don't look at her." But it was already too late. Emily lifted her hand slowly, fingers bending in a way no human fingers should. Every light on campus, every lamp, every classroom light, every phone screen, flickered violently and went out. Darkness swallowed the entire college. Students ran into buildings, tripping over benches and tables, screaming for help. Others hid behind trees, whispering prayers, shaking uncontrollably. Then came the sound, a deep, echoing whisper that filled every hallway and every room. It sounded like Emily, but also not, like a voice layered with another voice. Something older, something that shouldn't exist. "You shouldn't have followed me." Before anyone could react, one of the tall oak trees near the library snapped in half as if an invisible force hit it. The ground shook. Glass windows shattered. A fire alarm began ringing across the campus. Emily stepped forward. 1 step, 2 steps. Every student who looked at her screamed at once. Her face was changing. Her smile was too wide, stretching toward her ears. Veins turned black beneath her skin. Her eyes glowed brighter. She raised both hands, and the entire courtyard lights exploded in a burst of blue sparks. Then everything went silent. Pitch black silence. And that was only the beginning of the horror of a young lady becoming something else in an American college. Hours earlier, Emily Harper was just a normal freshman. She had just started her first year at Westfield University in Ohio. She was smart, friendly, always smiling, and majoring in psychology because she wanted to understand people better. She lived in Dorm A, room 214 with her roommate Hannah, who loved plants and filled the room with small potted flowers. Emily didn't mind. She said they made the room feel peaceful. But peaceful wasn't how Emily felt inside. Not lately. For the last 2 weeks, Emily had been having strange dreams. She never remembered them clearly, only flashes, long hallways, someone whispering her name, a dark figure standing behind her bed. She woke up every morning sweating, shaking, sometimes crying without knowing why. Hannah noticed. "You okay, Em? You look like you haven't slept in days." Emily forced a smile. "Just stress. Classes are crazy." But Hannah didn't believe her. One night, Emily woke up and found herself standing in the middle of the hallway, not in her bed. She didn't know how she got there. She didn't know how long she'd been standing. And worse, she was facing the wall, touching it with her fingertips, like she had been listening to something inside the wall. The next morning, she pretended nothing happened, but she could feel something changing, something inside her. Then came the strange incidents around campus. A girl in the library fainted after claiming she saw someone standing behind Emily, even though Emily was alone. Classroom lights flickered every time Emily walked in. At lunch, every electronic device on the table suddenly turned off the moment Emily sat down. People joked that she was haunted, but Emily felt sick every time someone said it. Something was wrong. Later that week, Emily was walking back to her dorm after a late-night study session. The campus was quiet, the air chilly. The lamps flickered one by one as she walked past them. She stopped. Someone whispered her name behind her. "Emily." She spun around. No one was there. She started walking faster. Her breath came out in white clouds even though it wasn't that cold. Then, out of nowhere, she heard footsteps behind her. Fast. Heavy. "Hello," she whispered, voice shaking. No answer. She started running. She didn't know where she was going. She just wanted lights, people, anything. But the footsteps grew louder. She reached the courtyard. The lamps flickered, then died. Pitch black. Emily froze. A voice whispered right behind her ear. "It's time." Emily gasped, spinning around. And everything around her burst into bright white light. Students nearby screamed. Emily's eyes were glowing. And something inside her finally awakened. The white light pouring from Emily's eyes didn't fade quickly. It pulsed, like a heartbeat made of electricity. Students who had gathered in the courtyard stumbled back, shielding their faces from the brightness. Some screamed, some ran, some simply froze in terror. Emily didn't understand what was happening. Her body felt heavy and light at the same time. Her fingers tingled. Her heartbeat echoed inside her head like a drum underwater. She whispered, "Help, someone please, help me." But the voice that came out wasn't hers. It was layered, hollow, echoing through the entire courtyard. Hannah pushed through the crowd, shouting, "Emily! Emily, look at me! What's happening?" Emily turned toward her. The moment their eyes met, Hannah dropped to her knees, shaking violently. She covered her ears as if Emily's presence alone was too loud to bear. Emily backed away in fear. "Hannah! No, I'm not trying to." But Hannah couldn't hear her. Her eyes rolled back, and she fell unconscious onto the grass. Emily's stomach twisted. Tears blurred her vision, but her glowing eyes made the tears shine like liquid light. "Please," Emily whispered. "Someone help her." Something inside her answered. "We don't help. We take." Emily clutched her head and screamed. Students backed away even more. The nearby oak trees shook as if reacting to her scream. A campus security officer approached slowly, flashlight trembling in his hand. "Miss, stay where you are," he said, voice cracking. Emily cried and said, "I don't want to hurt anyone." But the ground beneath her feet cracked. A shockwave blasted outward, knocking everyone around her onto the ground. Lights burst overhead. The fire alarm went off again. Emily fell to her knees, shaking. She didn't want this. She didn't want any of this. 2 hours earlier, she was just a girl trying to survive college life. After her classes ended that evening, she visited the psychology building for tutoring. Her tutor, Lucas, noticed she seemed pale. "You sure you're feeling okay?" he asked. Emily nodded weakly. "Just tired." But as they studied, Emily felt strange. Her vision blurred at random moments. She heard whispers echoing inside the room even when Lucas wasn't talking. And sometimes her reflection in the window didn't quite match her movements. At one point, she reached for her water bottle, and every light in the room flickered at the exact same time. Lucas stared at her. "Emily, what was that?" Emily didn't know. She packed up early and left. Now, hours later, she stood in a courtyard filled with screaming students and shattered glass. The police arrived next, rushing in with flashlights. "Stay where you are," one shouted. Emily held her hands up. "I don't want to hurt anyone. I'm not dangerous." But her voice echoed again with that other tone beneath it. That darker voice. The officers stepped back. One whispered, "Is she possessed?" Emily cried harder. The lights flickered. A nearby lamppost bent outward like something invisible was grabbing it. "Emily," someone shouted. It was Professor Wallace, her psychology teacher. He pushed past the officers and stepped closer to her, ignoring the shaking ground. "Emily," he said in a calm, steady voice, "something is happening to you. We're going to help you, okay? I promise." Emily shook her head. No, I can't control it." "You can," he said. "Just breathe." Emily closed her eyes. For a moment, everything became still. The air softened. The lights stopped flickering. The ground stopped shaking. Professor Wallace slowly reached out his hand. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're not alone." Emily reached back. Their hands almost touched. Then, every window in the psychology building behind them exploded outward at once. Students screamed as glass rained across the courtyard. The wind roared. The ground trembled like something giant was walking underground. Emily's body lifted a few inches off the ground, her hair floating again. Her eyes glowed brighter than before. Professor Wallace stumbled backward. The wind stopped. The lights went out. Only Emily glowed in the darkness. And suddenly, something huge, shadowy, and menacing appeared behind her. A shape so large it covered the wall of the building. A shadow that didn't belong to any human. Students screamed. One whispered, "There's something standing behind her." Emily didn't see it. She only felt cold fingers touch the back of her neck. Her eyes widened, and the voice whispered, "It is time." The shadow moved toward her. The cold fingers pressed harder into the back of Emily's neck, and she froze, every muscle locked, every breath stuck in her chest. The shadow behind her wasn't just a shape anymore. It stretched across the entire wall of the psychology building, much larger than any human, its edges flickering like smoke mixed with darkness. Students ran in every direction, tripping over benches, yelling for help. Police shouted for everyone to clear the area. Even Professor Wallace stumbled backward, staring at the enormous shadow with wide, terrified eyes. Emily whispered, please don't hurt me." But the voice inside her answered louder now. "You are ours." Her body lifted higher into the air. Her glowing eyes flickered like dying light bulbs. Sparks danced under her skin. The grass beneath her feet turned black, as if burned by her presence. Professor Wallace shouted up at her, "Emily, fight it. Whatever is inside you, push it out." Emily shook her head, crying. I can't. It won't let go. Her feet were no longer touching the ground. Her hair floated around her like dark waves. Students gasped as Emily's fingers bent backward slightly, not breaking, but forming a shape she could not control. The giant shadow behind her began to lean forward, slowly, like it wanted to merge with her. Its arms, long and twisted, reached around her, almost like it was wrapping her in itself. Emily screamed. A burst of bright white light exploded from her chest, knocking back everyone within 10 feet. Police were thrown to the ground. Trees bent backward. A row of campus lampposts snapped like toothpicks. Emily dropped to her knees, shaking. The giant shadow pulled back for a moment. But then, something worse happened. A second shadow rose from the ground beside the first one. Then a third. Then a fourth. Students who had stayed behind to watch now sprinted, yelling, crying, dropping backpacks and phones as they fled. One girl shouted, "Call the National Guard." Another cried, "The school is cursed." Emily clutched her head. "Stop, stop, stop." Professor Wallace ran to her side again, grabbing her shoulders. "Emily, listen to me. What happened to you? When did this begin?" Emily sobbed. "The dreams, the whispers, the lights flickering. I thought I was just stressed, but it was following me. It was always following me." The shadows crept closer, sliding across the ground like thick smoke. One of them rose taller than the dorm building itself. Emily's breathing grew fast and uneven. Her skin glowed again, brighter, brighter, until Professor Wallace had to shield his eyes. "Emily, you have to stay with me. Don't let it take you." She screamed, and the shadows reacted instantly. They lunged toward her, like beasts sensing her fear. The largest shadow opened a gigantic mouth-like shape, swallowing the light around it. More lights across campus burst. The fire alarms screamed. Windows shattered floor by floor in the administration building. Streetlights flickered violently. Emily staggered backward. Not again, not again. The ground beneath her cracked. A long, wide fissure opened beneath her feet. Professor Wallace grabbed her arm to keep her from falling in, but another shockwave hit the courtyard, throwing him backward. Emily slipped and fell into the crack. Students screamed. Professor Wallace crawled on hands and knees to the edge of the fissure. "Emily, Emily." But when he looked down, she wasn't falling. She was floating, suspended midair inside the crack, her entire body glowing as the shadows surrounded her like swirling smoke. Her eyes opened, but they were no longer glowing white. They were glowing red. Her voice echoed out of the crack, layered, distorted, not human at all. "I am not Emily anymore." The shadows merged behind her, forming one enormous shape. It rose from the crack like a giant creature being born from darkness. Screams erupted across the courtyard. Campus security fled. The sky darkened, storm clouds rolling in unnaturally fast. The giant shadow leaned down toward Emily, whispering something only she could hear. Her body jerked, then transformed, bending unnaturally, her arms cracking but not breaking, her hair lifting straight into the air. Professor Wallace stood frozen, tears in his eyes. "Emily, please." Emily lifted her head. Her expression was blank. Cold. Gone. She hovered out of the crack and landed gently on the courtyard floor, standing straight, her back slightly arched, her fingers twitching unnaturally. The giant shadow stood directly behind her, towering over the entire college courtyard. Every streetlight around her turned off. Every building light went out. Every phone nearby powered down. Westfield University became completely silent. Emily whispered the final words of the night. Words that chilled every soul that heard them. "This campus now belongs to us." And then, every shadow in the courtyard began to move toward the students who hadn't escaped yet.